Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. We're back for episode 2 of Pick My List. This is the series where my Grail Knight tier supporters pick the army that they want me to play, and while it's not listed as one of the tier perks, while it's feasible, I have been offering them the opportunity to play against me with these armies. So this month it was chosen that I was going to play Demons of Chaos, which is an interesting one. I think Demons is an as with a lot of the legacy factions, it's an unfinished book, but it's got a lot of stuff in there, and I think it's an interesting one to play around with. A list I've seen floating around is a Zinch-based list with a Bloodthirster. I think that's quite interesting, something that I wanted to try, so that's what I played today. I put my own spin on it, put a couple of different bits and pieces in there, but I think there are some interesting bits to be taken away from this, and some changes I make as well. I wasn't wowed by the Bloodthirster, but I'll talk about that more at the end. I was playing against Krieghammer, who was playing High Elves. This was a really fun game. We had a good time. I very much enjoyed doing some slightly non-optimal choices. There might be a charge in there where I see if a Demon Prince can take on a dragon, but we'll get to that one down the line. Okay, I'm not sure why, but unfortunately, Warhol didn't save the game. Fortunately, I do have screenshots of it, so we can still talk about it, and I won't have to go back and edit out all the flashes as it jumps from one screen to another. So yeah, maybe that's a good thing. In this game, Krieghammer was playing a fairly standard Prince on Dragon as his general. It has a 2-up save, it has a 5-up ward, it has a 5-up regen, it has a lance. These are all the things you'd expect to see. The 2-up save comes from the Dragon Helm, the 5-up ward comes from the Talisman of Protection, and also for a 5-up ward comes from Seed of Rebirth, which is unbelievably cheap for what it does. The fact that it's an extremely common magic item that gives you a 5-up regen and you can have multiple of them, very exciting. I think there's something to be played around with there. Potentially a 3-dragon list. I don't think 3 dragons is good, because the 3-dragon list for High Elves means that they're all T5, but maybe there's something to play around with. I will at some point. There is also Pure of Heart. So this is on all of the characters. This is a free upgrade. They, I can't remember the name of it, but High Elves have an upgrade ability where they can be from certain houses, effectively. The default one is Pure of Heart. It doesn't give you any limitations, and it lets you give your leadership in a bubble to all models, High Elf models, in your command range. Very similar to Inspiring Presence, but you can use it even if Inspiring Presence has been turned off. So, for example, if some of the Necromancy spells target your general, stop you from using the Inspiring Presence there, you can use Pure of Heart to still give that bubble of good leadership, and then for the secondary characters as well, they can give out the leadership. The second character is a Noble on Griffin, and I think that's really interesting. I was not wowed by this when I saw it, and the more I think about it, the more I like it. So it's reasonably tanky. It's T5, it's got a chunk of wounds, 3-up save and a 5-up regen from the Seed of Rebirth. No ward, but that's, it's still, for its points, reasonably tanky. The Noble's got 3 attacks at strength 6 AP2 with some armor bane. The Griffin's got, I think it's 2 attacks at strength 5 AP2 and then 1 attack at strength 5 armor bane to multiple damage 2. So there's 5 attacks in there that are really good and then 1 additional attack. It's, T5, chunk of wounds, good save, a second save. The way I'm thinking about this is it's like a Demon Prince. It doesn't have a 360 degree charge arc. It does have some D3 stomps as well, which is nice. No IP on those. But yeah, not something I was super... I really thought about before this game. So I'm glad that I played against Krieghammer and this sort of opened my eyes, because I definitely will be playing some High Elf games down the line, probably when they get their Arcane Journal. So, yeah, Noble on Griffin, something to play around with. Just a cheap sort of like skirmishy character. Doesn't skirmish, but can pick off stuff at the outsides of the board. Anyway, enough about that. There's an Archmage, level 4 caster. This is as standard as you can get for a level 4 caster. Ruby Ring of Ruin, Lore Familiar to pick your spells, Battle Magic. On a horse, just to be mobile. The game plan here, 2 fireballs, 1 from Ruby Ring of Ruin, 1 from the caster. Pillar of Flame. Probably Arcane Urgency, probably Curse of Our Attraction, or, maybe Oaken Shield. Whatever the best choice for the moment is. So there's 3 super solid spells, and then there's 2 good conditional spells in there that you want to go with. You can also go into some of the High Elf spells as well if you fancy it, but I don't believe my opponent did this game. 260 points. Incredibly cheap for what it provides. Would recommend if you're playing a High Elf army. Into the core. Now, I'm not super wowed by any of the High Elf core. I think the Silver Helms are fine. I like the concept of a big brick of Sisters of Avalon in core, but then you have to take the High Sister, or whatever she's called, as your general. She's leadership 8, it means you can't take a Lord on Dragon, so that's very limiting in its own way. I think I like the small units of archers. They're just genuinely good, little cheap chaff units. But yeah, I'm not wowed by any of the choices in core. Krieghammer went for 2 units of 7 Illyrian Reavers, and these are light cavalry. They've got, short bows, light armor, cavalry spears. Krieghammer's gone for a champion and a musician. These are good upgrades. I generally don't take the champion unless it gives me more leadership. I'm not super bothered about getting that extra attack for the points. But in this case, if you have a look, 504 points here, it does help put Krieghammer over the minimum to get into the next pip. What I might have liked seeing, actually, is if we drop the champions here and here, and we look at getting these up to 8 models instead of 7, it just makes them slightly harder to cause panic in, or to get them below 25% for the end of the game scoring. Didn't really matter in this game, but just something to play around with in general. Multiples of 4 are very strong in the old world, especially if you're playing with squishy units. So 2 units of fast cavalry, they're going to be running around. Musicians, didn't mention why they're good. A musician gives you +1 to rally, and also +1 to overcoming your march block test. So these are things that you're probably going to be doing with your light cavalry. You might be marching to try and get out of range or behind an opponent. You might be wanting to flee from a charge, even though I don't believe they have fire and flee. They're just a cheap core unit. They can flee from a charge and then have the +1 to rally. All of these things are quite good. So excellent choices on the upgrades there. 4 units of 5 Elven Archers. These are cheap chaff. They're good for finishing off units that are heavily wounded by Ruby Ring of Ruin or Pillar of Fire, or just fireballs in general, I should say. You can technically put them in marching column, have them 1 wide, 5 deep, because they have volley fire, and you can shoot half rounding up of your rank width. For your short bows with volley fire, you can technically have them 5 long, shoot all your shots as long as you didn't move, and then you're able to march 15 inches and do redirecting if you need to do that. I like them anyway. They're just cheap redirectors. Like I say, you can pick up wounded units. It might take multiple units to finish stuff off, but it's just a good way to finish off your core. Then there are 6 Dragon Princes. I quite like Dragon Princes, actually. I know people aren't overly hot on them because of the Impetuous and their Strength and Toughness 3 natively, so there are some downsides there. But they're reasonably cheap, I think, for what they bring. They have 2 attacks base, which is really nice. They're a great target for giving the High Elf the High Magic spell if you wanted to go that way to give them +1 attack. I think they're fine. They did quite well in this game. Yeah, not much to say about them. You can screen them for impetuosity and make them less of a problem in terms of running around the board on getting frenzy baited. I think they're just fine. I'm not sure. I'm always not sure whether I want to put command into my heavy cavalry, because I'm a big fan of not giving up points for standards. But then sometimes you're going into harder targets, and that extra bit of combat res probably matters. I think it's probably fine to go full command here. I'm not sure I love the champion. I don't like being challenged now if you need to go into something beefier, but that's personal preference, not a mistake on my opponent's part. Into rare, there are 2 Great Eagles. If you've played Warhammer Fantasy at any point, you know what these are for. They are redirectors. They are war machine hunters. They are cheap. They are cheerful. They're more expensive than they used to be, but they're still very good. So 2 Great Eagles is a good number. Finally, 2 units of Sisters of Avalon. These are Ballistic Skill 5, so they're going to be hitting on 2s before debuffs. Their Bows of Avalon are AP 1 and Armor Bane 1, I believe. So you've just got a little bit more consistency with your shooting. They're good. They're skirmish. They ignore cover as well, which is really nice. You can just chip away at things that are trying to hide in woods or similar. Really nice little unit there. So a lot of skirmish firepower, or like small units of bows, a couple of heavy hitters, dragon. So moving on to my list as well. As I said previously, I was playing the Tzeentch and Khorne combo. So if we start off with the Bloodthirster, I've given the Bloodthirster the Blood Flail. This is a flail, so +2 strength in the first round of combat. It's just, regular strength the rest of the time, but strength 6 on a Bloodthirster, so you're not super bothered about going down to strength 6 in turn 2 of combat. If you're in combat, on a second round, something's probably gone wrong. So maybe pick better fights. Foreshadowing. I've also gone for the Armor of Khorne, which is heavy armor, and it also gives you a 5-up ward, but all of the time. That's a big downside of demons. If you're not aware, demons are unbreakable, but when you lose combat, you have to roll a leadership test, and however much you lose by after modifiers, you lose that many wounds. If you roll a double 6, you just poof out of existence. So yeah, getting a permanent ward save here because you lose your ward save against magical attacks is good. Something I should mention as well, Sisters of Avalon, they've got magical shooting, so quite nice into my units as well. So the Bloodthirster, absolute beefcake, weapon skill 10, strength 6 becoming strength 8 with the Blood Flail, AP 2. I think it's got Armor Bane 2, but the most important thing it has is D3 wounds. So I was quite keen to try and get this into a dragon, see if I could take real chunks out of it. Collar of Khorne as well, giving me +1 to my magic resist, taking me up to magic resist 3. Just nice to have on a beta character, especially because I probably don't want to have my Demon Prince on the front lines immediately as a spell threat. So keeping the Bloodthirster safe is something that I was thinking about when I was writing the list. I wasn't aware that my opponent was going to be playing Battle Magic. Speaking of the Demon Prince, this is the general. I haven't got it on here for some reason. It says light armor there, but it should say heavy armor. I do have the points for it. Demon of Tzeentch. So you're getting the +1 to cast, which is nice. You've got Aetherblade, which is you ignore all armor saves with your hand weapon. Oh, only a hand weapon. That sounds terrible. No, the Demon Prince has strength 6 attacks natively. So you've got 5 attacks that ignore all armor saves, which is quite nice. Twin Heads gives me +1 spell, and I've gone for Dark Magic. The reason I've gone for Dark Magic is I wanted to have the Demon Prince as a buff piece that could also sort of fly around, do a little bit of skirmishing, do some debuffing. Obviously, Dark Magic has Word of Pain, which is -1 strength and toughness. The Tzeentch lore have a debuff, which is -D3 to, if you cast it on an 8+, it's 1 of weapon skill, strength, or toughness. If you cast it on a 12+, which is quite easy to do, or it's not impossible to do with a +5 caster, you minus it from 2 stats. So the thinking being, I could theoretically get the Demon Prince, debuff a dragon to potentially strength and toughness 2, more likely 3, but potentially strength and toughness 2, and then the Demon Prince can probably go to town on that model. That's something that I was quite keen to give a go. So general. Other than that, knows 5 spells, casts at +5, ignores armor save, has wings, flies around, all that good stuff. Into core, Chaos Furies. God, I love these things. So Furies are fast. They have Vanguard, so you can start getting them up the board. They have Fly, they have Skirmish, they have Swift Stride. All of these things combine to be just a really cheap, light unit that punches up well above their weight. They can charge in any direction because of Skirmish. They're super fast because of Swift Stride. They have 1 attack at Strength 4 and AP 1, which is pretty solid to start with. They have Furious Charge, so that gets them up to a 2nd attack, and you're probably getting that charge because of the Swift Stride. Then you can take Mark of Khorne, which is, I think, 2 points per model, but it's worthwhile because it gives them +1 strength on the charge. And suddenly you've got a unit of 7 Furies that can be doing 14 attacks at Strength 5, AP 1. And that's just pretty tasty for 100 points. Combo that with the Demon Prince. I'm going to put Battle Frenzy on the unit. That gets them up to 21 attacks because it gives them Frenzy. It also gives them Hatred. So it's going to be 21 attacks, re-rolling hits. So you're going to be hitting on 3s or 4s, re-rolling those hits, Strength 5, AP 1. This unit should absolutely cleave through anything that isn't super heavily armored or high toughness. Really big fan of this. In future lists, I'd probably just go 6 units of Furies, honestly. Or maybe 5, Just get me over that core tax and then just take all Furies. Something that I did try in this game was the Pink Horrors of Tzeentch. The way that horrors work is you have them in a ranked up unit. They cast a bound spell. One of the Tzeentch spells, they can either have a terrible magic missile, or they can take that debuff that I talked about, which is if you cast it on an 8, you minus D3 from 1 stat on an opposing unit. It's a hex, and if you cast on a 12+, you get rid of D3 on 2 stats. So I wanted to make that happen. I paid for the upgrade for the Icon of Sorcery in full command. The way that it works is you cast it at bound level of ranks, so they don't have Horde or Warband or anything like that, which means that they've got leadership. They cast a bound spell level 2 normally, but the Icon of Sorcery gives them double their rank bonus. So if it's a full unit, I'm casting at power level bound spell 4. It's quite nice. Obviously, it's a bound spell, so it can't miscast, and you're getting it as if it's a level 4 caster. I don't think that's worth 341 points. I think it was interesting. I'm glad I played around it, but I probably won't be doing it again. Into my special, because I've got a Tzeentch demon, that unlocks different things. That's something to mention for demons as well. You have Furies in your core, but other than that, you only have the mark of your god, your general's god, troops. Everything moves one closer. So there's stuff in rare, and if you've got a Tzeentch general, the Tzeentch stuff moves from rare to special, and from special to core. So the pink horrors become core because I've got a Tzeentch general. Flamers, normally in rare, but become special because I've got a Tzeentch general. You can take them as they're okay. They've got a march and shoot weapon. They're quite expensive, honestly, for what they are. They're a T4 model with 2 wounds. They've got an okay shooting attack. But the secret sauce, no, it's not very secret, but the spicy thing about them is you upgrade 1 to an Exalted Flamer, which is, I think it's 2 levels of upgrade. So you basically upgrade it to a Pyromancer and then an Exalted Flamer, or the other way around. You make it a level 3 caster. That's what I'm trying to say. I went for Demonology here. You can't take Battle Magic, unfortunately. I did go for Iridescent Corona. I thought that would be interesting. They are just skirmishing infantry. So they have -1 to be hit normally. Iridescent Corona gives them additional -1 to be hit against shooting as well. So they're -2 to be shot. I wanted to give that a go because they don't have much defenses otherwise. But yeah, so it's basically a level 3 caster for 257 points that flies around with some ablative wounds and can do some incidental shooting. I think they're interesting. I enjoyed playing around with it. And then finally, the best thing in the book, in my opinion, the Soul Grinder. I've given it the Demon of Slaanesh upgrade. The reason for that is it gives it, I think, +1 to charge and pursuit rolls. I haven't given it any upgrades in terms of weapons. Unfortunately, naked, it's 255 points, so at 2,000 points, you can't fit a second Soul Grinder in. This is heartbreaking because Soul Grinders are so good. They're on a massive base. They're 150 by 100, so they're 150 at the front edge and 100 back, which is a slightly odd thing to look at, but it makes sense when you look at the model. It's a big crab out to the sides. And you've got this model that can... It's okay in combat. It's strength and toughness 6. It's fine in combat. It's got a number of attacks. It's got Furious Charge. Honestly, it's actually quite good in combat. But it also has a shooting attack, which is like needs more nails from a cannon. So you roll an artillery dice. You do that many auto hits with strength 4 AP1. If you roll a misfire, you just take a wound. So very reasonable. It also has reserve move, and it's a behemoth, so it's lumbering. So have you ever been outmaneuvered by a model that is on 150 by 100 base? I have. It feels really bad. What's going to happen is you're going to move up. I think it's got an 8-inch move from memory. You get a lumbering pivot, so you get to face in a different direction. Go to the shooting phase. Even if it's not in range to shoot, you just move again. So you move 8, pivot on the spot, 8, pivot on the spot again. And especially if you combine that with a Battle Magic caster, so you can Arcane Urgency it, move it another 8, or if you wanted, you could just straight up march it twice in that case. This thing is surprisingly hard to catch, and if you do catch it, it's not even great. The things that are going to catch it, the skirmishing units, they just probably die to it. So yeah, Soul Grinder, love it, big fan, reasonably tough, stomp attacks, all good stuff. I'd love to run 2 if I can. I think that would really push demons up to the next level. But overall, I've got a bit of a mixed bag. I've got mostly Tzeentch and Khorne with a Demon of Slaanesh Soul Grinder. So as you can see, I've truly stayed, I'm a monogod man. Wouldn't be mixing. Couldn't catch me mixing. All right, so we played open battle. We rolled off. I managed to put a building in the center because I wanted to have something to hide some of those Furies behind. That was the game plan. I believe the map with the woods in the center were taken away from me as an option, so I didn't get to choose that one. Deployment, we deployed as you see here. So everything that can skirmish is skirmishing. So the Sisters of Avalorn down in the bottom left are skirmishing, and the same for there is another unit of them. Oh, this must have been halfway through the deployment. Yeah, so you can see there's another Sisters unit there. My opponent basically just put the archers down to see where I was putting my drops, and I had to commit things a lot faster. So, Soul Grinder's on 100 by 150. Maybe I was wrong with that one. I'd have to double check. So the way I deployed, I put my big unit of pink horrors down centrally, because basically all I'm using it for is a debuff and also to sort of soak up some attention. I put a unit of harpies on my right flank, and then I put 2 units of Harpies on my left flank. The reason I put them on the left flank is I want to vanguard them down to the left of the building. It is a building, I promise you, even though it looks like it's a shack with a boat on the top. So this is, line of sight blocking terrain. So 2 units of Harpies are sat over to the left-hand side, and one is sat on the right-hand side from the top there. I've got the unit of Flamers deployed behind the woods, and I've also got the Soul Grinder down just up here in the top right. And it's a fairly honest deployment. I want to go quite quickly and aggressively, and my opponent wants to not die. As I said, I was taking screenshots throughout and Warhol hasn't saved it, so apologies, this is a slightly incomplete deployment. Basically, my Demon Prince is up here in the top left behind the Harpies. Obviously, you can see the Demon Prince in the center there, and that's it for my characters. My opponent put his dragon down, I believe, fairly centrally, and then the Dragon Princes are down here on the bottom right next to the Leman Reavers. So if we move on to, because I won the roll-off, I had less drops than my opponent. That is one of the downsides of having a list where you put down loads of drops before you see where your opponent goes. My list is quite fast, so I'm not super bothered about my opponent seeing where I put things because I can vanguard and then just go fast. So turn 1, I full send. This is my list. So spent quite a large time thinking about what I wanted to do. Oh yes, and of course the eagles and the griffin noble are down here on the bottom right for my opponent. So went into the spell casting phase. There wasn't really much of anything to cast. Dark magic is more about the debuffs. So I've got Word of Pain. I've got the Tzeentch spell for minus D3 to a stat, or 2 stats if I cast it well enough. I've got Battle Frenzy. I don't have a magic missile or anything like that on the Demon Prince. And I've got a couple of assailments. So nothing like super exciting there for my turn 1. The horrors here, they are... How did I get them so far? I don't remember. Oh, yeah. What was exciting spell-wise is that I rolled Steed of Shadows from the Demonology caster in the Flamers, the Exalted Flamer. So turn 1, the big brick of horrors here, Steed of Shadows up the board. I wouldn't necessarily do this all of the time, but on the left flank, from the perspective here, you can see that my opponent doesn't really have anything meaningful. There's some light cavalry behind a wood that can't see where the pink horrors end up, so I feel pretty comfortable just marching them forwards, getting into position where I can definitely debuff something. I also angle to try and make sure that if, say, the dragon comes across, I've got 2 chances of getting a debuff onto him, so that's the positioning here. The Soul Grinder moves up, pivots, and then moves up again at the end of the shooting phase. It's out of range to shoot anything, so it's basically just a case of getting 2 sets of lumbering, which is quite nice. The Bloodthirster just full marches forwards, full aggression. Something I learned recently, and I haven't been playing a lot of flying units, so it's not that I've been doing it wrong, it's just that I didn't realise this was a rule. If you're in dangerous terrain and you fly, you don't take a dangerous terrain check for moving out of the woods. You only take them if you end in dangerous terrain. We play the woods as dangerous terrain. An interesting little aspect there, something that I think a lot of people might miss. So if you fly, don't take dangerous terrains when you move out of the woods, only when you move into them. And that rule is at the bottom of the fly ruling there if you need to see it in paper. So, sorry, back to my turn. I've moved up the Soul Grinder twice with the reserve move. I've vanguarded the Furies over to the left. I basically looked at this brick here, saw the dragon and the noble, and I was like, I don't really want to deal with that, and just vanguarded to the left from this perspective, and then marched further left as well, just trying to make it as inefficient as possible. I love a good denied flank. The Steed of Shadows pink horrors marched up as well. The Bloodthirster marched up. The Demonology casters marched up as well, because I thought there's no point in keeping them over to the edge. And also, my opponent's realistically not going to do any damage to them. Oh no, you can shoot some short bows at -3 because of the long range, even if you can get in range. And then you're going to get charged by a Bloodthirster. So, felt pretty safe over here. And then I had 2 units of Harpies. So, the reason they are arrayed like this is one was deployed just above the building, and one was deployed to the left of it. I vanguarded, and they both came up against this wall, basically. And then I won the roll-off and went first. So the first unit marched and got giving me cover here. The reason for this is there is a surprising amount of shooting for my opponent down the bottom left. And what I wanted to do is make it so that it was unlikely that he was able to pick up both units or heavily injure both units. So by using the front unit to screen the back unit, I was using getting an additional heavy cover on this unit here. So if my opponent wanted to shoot at the second unit of 7 harpies here, he was going to be taking -3 for ballistic skill shooting. And then I remembered that Sisters of Avalon don't care about cover, so would have been shooting at -1 anyway. But I think the game plan was correct. The reason I was doing this as well is obviously over here you've got the Demon Prince. The Demon Prince is currently screened from shooting because it is a lone character, and it's next to a unit with enough unit strength, and I didn't want this unit of 7 harpies to get chipped down enough that the Demon Prince was at risk. So, first turn, full send, but I did take a surprising amount of time just positioning my units. Onto my opponent's turn, he does cast the Curse of Higher Attraction onto the front unit. That one does go off despite my spellcaster being quite close. This is from the High Elf level 4 Sorcerer down in the unit of Illyrian Reavers. A lot of people are using Light Cavalry as a bunker for a caster now. I think that's interesting. Obviously, an adaptation we've seen from Battle Magic. Pillar of Fire is so ubiquitous, it's so easy to pick out like characters now with a Pillar of Fire or similar, that just having a bunker for your unit is probably wise, because most people, if you go to an event, half or more of your opponents are probably going to play Battle Magic, which is a shame and it's a little bit dull, so I'd like to see that changed. The dragon marches up behind, what I should say is the dragon marches into this little spot here next to the Soul Grinder and out of the charge arc of the Bloodthirster. Krieghammer then uses Arcane Urgency to move it again and gets it a second time, so it's facing the flank of the Pink Horrors, but also looking to charge into the Furies if needs be, or the Demon Prince. Quite a long charge range, so set up for making it difficult for me to do things. This unit here, the cowardly unit of Illyrian Reavers runs away from the Bloodthirster. Obviously, I can't see through the wood. So what happens there is my opponent measured it. We measured it a couple of times, decided he had to march after he Arcane Urgency'd, which made perfect sense. So gets out of range there, but I don't lose any models to Fireball, which is honestly a win for me. The Eagles march over, and everything just sort of arrays here. So you've got the Dragon Princes behind some archers. My opponent was very, I think, concerned about me charging into the Dragon Princes and just picking up an expensive unit for nothing. The Noble on Griffin marches up to the corner here, pivoting around to try and get into the back of the Soul Grinder, or even just a flank, or get into the Flamers. This is quite nice positioning, and then the Illyrian Reavers move up, and the Archers also move up, but they're realistically going to be not doing much this game from the positioning. So I went very aggressive turn 1. My opponent then sort of like scrambles to position to deal with me turn 1, and I'm feeling pretty good about how things are going. So we go into... yes, here we go. So we go into my turn 2. I cast Battle Lust on the back unit. Some shooting does happen, and I do lose 2 models from the front squad of Harpies, which honestly, not a problem at all. I'm pretty happy about that. I cast some spells. I get Battle Lust onto the unit 7 Harpies that's behind, so they're going to be absolutely ready to rip through anything, which is great. I managed to cast Word of Pain from the Demon Prince onto the Dragon there. It's only -1 strength and toughness, but it felt like it was worth doing just in case I wasn't able to get out of the way fully, and I ended up in combat with it in a way that I wasn't expecting or didn't want to do. We've got a debuff here. So this is, yes, here we go. So this is the Tzeentch debuff. I managed to debuff them down to toughness 1, I believe, the Sisters of Avalon in the wood there from the Pink Hovers with their bound spell. So that was quite a fun one. Moving on to my movement and charges, as you can see, both units here do just charge. Both sets of Harpies charge in. There's some stand and shoot. I lose a couple of models to stand and shoot from the Sisters of Avalon. Again, I position them and I charge them, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be great. My opponent's going to take cover penalties for shooting me. Reminds me that he doesn't take cover penalties, and I go, never mind. I played correctly, even if it doesn't apply in this circumstance. Always better to just play well and have it not apply at a time. But both units get in. both make the charge into the respective archers, the regular archers and the Sisters of Avalon. The Demon Prince just marches over the wall here. I don't want to risk charging in, having someone run away, then being out in the open for the dragon. So what I decided to do was just get out of the way. That was the game plan here. The Bloodthirster does charge into the first of the Eagles. They have been positioned to screen me a little bit in terms of charging, so I figured, screw it, let's just kill an Eagle, then we'll kill something else on my opponent's turn, then we'll kill something else on my turn, blood for the Blood God. I don't think I even rolled the Impetuous on him because I was so certain that I was going to charge this turn, but obviously something I should be doing. Other than that, I move forwards here. As you can see, these Furies just march forwards to get out of line of sight of the Noble. So the Noble's vision arc is sort of like that. So I'm safe from being charged with the Noble. This is a really hard army for the Noble to play against, which is, I think, interesting. But yeah, the Flamers march up behind the dragon. Everyone else marches up. I managed to steer the Shadows, the unit of horrors again, so they get up out of range of the dragon. Basically, I'm just playing the avoidance game. I think this is a very glass cannon sort of army. You want to leverage what you have and deal as much damage without risking getting caught. That's the game plan. So the Bloodthirster kills an Eagle. Hell yeah. Goes into the archers. They're going to die on my opponent's next turn. Not even worried. Soul Grinder moves up. Tries to shoot into the debuff Sisters of Avalon. Does a wound to himself. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Things are going great. Everything's out of charge arcs. Apart from here, this dragon is still going to be able to charge into the back of these horrors. The Furies, I should say. So both Furies do wipe out the respective units, and both of them get into combat with the the unit that the caster is in. This is fine. Ideally, I'd like to not be in charge range of the dragon coming into my next turn, but it's not the end of the world. The main thing is that I've shut down the casting from the caster again. So I feel like I'm in a really good spot. I feel like I've outpositioned and I've outmaneuvered my opponent so far, which, full credit to the list. It's a very easy list to do that with. So feel like things are going well. And you might notice that I'm stressing the point on that, but we'll get to that on my turn 3. So coming into my opponent's turn 3 here, declares a charge. The dragon declares a charge into the Furies. This is expected. We knew it was going to happen. The dragon's going to be in combat. Things are going to die. Everything else just sort of moves up, shuffles round. The Noble moves up to threaten the level 3 casting, not Furies. That was it. Sorry, doesn't move up. So 2 charges are declared here, and this is, I get so lucky. I'm really surprised. The Noble and the Eagle both declare a charge into the unit of Flamers, the level 3 upgraded Flamers. I can't flee because I'm a demon, which means I'm unbreakable. That is a downside. That is a real, genuine downside. So I've just got to stand and take the charge, which sucks because they're just going to die. My opponent fails both charges. So both the Eagle here and the Noble on Griffin just stumble forwards, and that is potentially backbreaking because they're just doing nothing. This is his turn 2. Then I can potentially run away. They might not do anything until turn 4. This is very rough. Everything else shuffles forwards. The Dragon Princes are kind of just sat there going, well, I don't know what to do. I guess I just stay here. And other than that, a single sister here who has been shot by the Soul Grinder lives, flees through the unit of horrors, survives, and is just stood at the edge of the board, being slightly inconvenient for me to deal with. Yeah, so not a bad... Again, this is looking really good for me. My opponent's made one charge that matters, failed a charge here, so I've got real just sort of mid-board control, and I'm about to smash my Bloodthirster into the Dragon Princes. What my opponent does is make sure... I can't remember if he moves up or if they were already positioned, but he has actively chosen to be within 3 inches of where the Berserker... the Bloodthirster is. My apologies. This is important because the Bloodthirster has Furious Charge, so +1 attack on the charge. Also gets impact hits. Doesn't have stomps, which really comes to bite me in the backside. So an active choice here, stopping me from getting additional bonuses in combat. So that is rough. As you can see, the archers do pivot around, so they can maybe do something in a later point. Combat, as you might expect, my Furies do a good amount of damage. They kill everyone apart from the level 4 caster. Great stuff. Big fan of that. The dragon kills everyone apart from one Fury. And I think what happens there from memory, I then lose on combat res. So I lose an additional 3 models here, and it all goes poorly. Or about as well as I could expect, honestly, for having a dragon in the backside. So I shouldn't complain. So things are still tied up here. A unit of Sisters of Avalon are just moving forwards to try and threaten these the Flamers of Tzeentch. I have killed the archers in combat and overrun into the Dragon Princes, but again, as I stressed, not with the charge bonuses, and it comes into my turn. So, there's a little summary for the end of the turn. This is where I decide to do something a little bit silly. So, from my perspective, it feels like how the game is going. I can probably just run around Krieghammer and have quite an uninteractive game, which is how I'd play it at a tournament. But I did say to him, I said, I think it's going to be way more interesting to limit test this, and also way more fun to see if the Demon Prince can take a dragon in combat. This is probably not the wisest decision, but it was a lot of fun to do so. So I make that commitment, and then I go to cast my spells. I managed to get Word of Pain off onto the dragon. Excellent. Down to T5 and Strength 5. Fantastic stuff. I then managed to cast the Tzeentch debuff as well, but I only roll a 1 on the minus, so I get the dragon down to Toughness and Strength 4. That's not quite as good as I wanted to be, because I'm only T5 on the Dragon Prince, so I'm still going to be wounded on 5s. But, okay, it is what it is. I was hoping to get it down to Strength and Toughness 3. I also flank charge it with a single Fury, the one that's left alive from after combat res and rolling. The reason for this is just getting a flank charge. I'm going to challenge with the Demon Prince into the dragon. There's no actual risk of this giving combat res to my opponent, so it just gives me a nice +1. I'm hoping that I can, fingers crossed, do enough damage to the dragon. It doesn't do much back, it flees, and then I catch it with the Swift Stride on the Harpy. There is a game plan here. It is risky, unnecessarily so, but there is a game plan. So, everything else moves up. You can see the Soul Grinders moved up, shot, and then pivoted. The Harpies have flown into the flank, the Furies have flown into the flank of the Giant Eagle. The Bloodthirster is in the front of the Demon Princes, Dragon Princes. God, I'm getting all my words confused today. I need more coffee. And then I do believe that I move the Flamers of Tzeentch as well. Let me just double check that one. Yeah, move up. Yes, there we go. So here you can see the Soul Grinder. On this turn, I took a wound from moving through cover. I rolled a 1 on my dangerous terrain, and I also have the wound from misfiring earlier with the Need More Nails. So that's fun. Combat then. So fuck all happens. Like, this is where it starts to fall apart for me. It goes really poorly this turn. I do no wounds to the Dragon Princes. That's right. I do no wounds. I've got 6 attacks. I'm hitting on 3s. I fluff my rolls. I think I get 2 hits through. Both of them wound. Okay, cool. I'm wounding on 2s. I'm strength 8. This is fine. My opponent takes his saves. Both 4-ups. Only having AP2 is actually a big downside. And I really did not enjoy that. So I think I might lose combat because of there's a standard and there's a musician, and we're both close order. So I lose by 1. I roll my leadership test. I don't think I take any damage, but I am just stuck there. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, never mind. It's going into my opponent's turn. I'll just kill them on the next turn. We'll see how it goes. The combat with the dragon, I do 3 wounds. I'm hitting on 4s, but I'm wounding on 2s because my strength 6 and the toughness 4. There are still layered saves, despite not having any armor save from my Aether Blade. There is a 5-up ward and a 5-up regen, but I do get 3 wounds through. I'm feeling good about this. Then my opponent gets a couple of wounds through, and then they give ground instead of fleeing. So the whole game plan of me being like, I'm going to run them down with Swift Stride doesn't happen. I do follow up, and the debuffs do last until, my next turn. Oh, I forgot to say, I got Battle Lust off as well. So I get Frenzy and Hatred, which is why I managed to do 3 wounds after saves. But yeah, this combat, when you make a mistake and you look and you go, this is it. This is where things start to turn. So a really underwhelming set of combats, and also really underwhelming from the Soul Grinder. I tried to shoot the Sisters of Avalon, and yeah, they're still completely fine. There we go. Into my opponent's turn. Oh, speaking of underwhelming combats, because there was one more. Here, I charge into the eagle. I do 2 wounds. The eagle kills 2 models back. It's a lost combat for me, I believe. No, it's a tied combat, I think. I can't remember exactly how the modifiers go, but the eagle gives ground, and I follow up. Oh, okay, sure, whatever. Coming into my opponent's turn 3, as you can see here, we've got the combat again, just continuing on, and yes, moves around. So the noble charges into the unit of flamers. I do remember that I can stand and shoot this time, whereas I forgot that I could do that before. Apologies, it's the first time playing the army. It's the sort of small mistakes that you might expect to make. The Sisters of Avalon just march to try and get out of where they are, because currently they're in the charge arc of the Soul Grinder. Given how things have been going in the shooting phase, I'm definitely going to charge if I get it, but I don't get it. It's what it is. Okay, no worries. The combat maintains here. Basically, all 3 combats we're in just continue. And if you look at the board state, I'm looking like I'm in a pretty okay spot, but I have picked stupid combats, and that has come back to bite me. So here you can see the noble manages to kill all of the flamers, then pivots, so it has charge into the rest of my forces coming into Krieghammer's turn 4 after my turn. In this combat here, I do a single wound into the dragon. The dragon doesn't do anything back. I save everything. But this time, I think it's a tied combat between flank charge and I might save a wound on a regen. It effectively means that nothing happens here down in the bottom left-hand corner. And this is a problem because I'm now in combat and I can't cast any of my spells. I can't cast Word of Bane. I can't cast the Siege debuff. I can't cast Battle Lust. None of them are range self. So yeah, my plan for the Demon Prince to come through, sweep and kill the dragon, it's not gone well. I've got 3 wounds remaining. Krieghammer's dragon has 5 wounds remaining, and now it's going to be strength and toughness 6 again, and that is a problem that I just can't deal with. So, slight, major concern. Coming into my next turn, the combat continues down here in the bottom left because there's nothing else I can do. There's no falling back. There's no running away. I'm locked in here with you. The Soul Grinder turns around to face the masses of things that you can see, goes to shoot again, misfires again, and takes another dangerous terrain wound. This is absolutely heartbreaking. I think this is part of why the next turn goes so poorly for me. If I still had, because I've taken 4 wounds from misfires and dangerous terrain, if I was still a 6 wound model, I'd have more that I could do. It wouldn't be enough, but I'd have more that I could do. The combats we're in continue. I just don't have the punch that I need to get out. This is very much like a hit and run force, and I've not picked my fights correctly. So I stay in combat here with the Dragon Princes, I stay in combat here with the Eagle, and I stay in combat here with the Dragon. Let's go to combats. Oh, they go really poorly for me. So... the Demon Prince dies. Just gets absolutely flattened. Now that the dragon's wounding on 3s again, as expected, dead. Somehow I lose combat with the Bloodthirster. I do nothing, and I take, I think, 2 wounds from the 1 wound from the hand weapons, 1 wound from the horses, which is heartbreaking. For what a stupid unit. Yeah, the Eagle does die. That's good, and then I have to overrun with no, I choose to overrun, sorry. I would land in the middle of the pink horse here, and I just go over to the other side, so just trying to make sure I don't get charged in the rear. In retrospect, maybe I should have just used them to screen off the Bloodthirster, but it didn't matter. So here I am, my Demon Prince is dead. My Bloodthirster has taken some damage, is now out in the open because my opponent didn't follow up because it's coming into their turn. And my Soul Grinder is on its last legs. Let's go into Krieghammer's turn number 4. And, oh, yep, here we go. Dragon charging the back of the Soul Grinder. Yep. And, yeah. Yeah, this is it. This is basically the game. So, down at the bottom here, the Sisters of Avalon shoot the Single Fury off. The dragon kills the Soul Grinder and overruns straight forwards. The Illyrian Reavers move just to get out of range of the Bloodthirster, basically. It's all terrible stuff there. Just a summary of the remaining turns. over here on the bottom flank on my turn, I reform to try and potentially take a charge from the Dragon Ogres, Dragon Princes. The Furies move up to try and block them from charging, and yes, there we go, it's gone. So I'm sorry, that's an eagle. That's not the Bloodthirster. What I need to tell you is that in turn 4, in Krieghammer's turn 4, I lose combat by 1 again. So my Demon Prince still has like 3 or 4 wounds remaining. I go to roll my leadership test, and I roll a double 6. And if you're a demon and you fail combat and you roll a break test, or the equivalent of a demon break test, and you roll a double 6, your entire unit just disappears. So it's the will of the gods, the fickle will of the gods, and I just poof out of existence. And there goes my last hope of the game. So just quickly to summarize here, charges are made into my big ranked up unit of pink horrors. I try to stand and shoot. I don't even think I do a wound into the eagle. The dragon positions to mop me up, and then combat continues. I lose, give ground. I get charged. I'm tabled. A really fun game. I had a great time with this. Krieghammer was a great opponent. It was a really interesting list that he brought. I made a suboptimal decision that we talked about at the time. But it would have been interesting to see what happened if I didn't do that, because I think I could probably just run around the list and try and pick him off with all the skirmishing charges that I had. Bloodthirster, though, super not impressed by a Bloodthirster. I think so. I've been talking to a couple of people, and they've been selling me on the Keeper of Secrets. Maybe it's the Lord of Change. Maybe Lord of Change is the option to go for. But Keeper of Secrets is, it's faster than a Bloodthirster. Bloodthirster doesn't have Swift Stride, which is a real genuine downside. It does have... Keeper of Secrets has 2 less movement, but it has Swift Stride, and it doesn't have Fly. It's also a level 4 caster, assuming you upgrade it, which you would. You go Illusion, you hope that you roll the best spells, which is a little swingy. I don't love that. But yeah, Khorne Furies, absolutely incredible. Take as many units of those as you can. The Dark Magic Tzeentch Demon Prince, I was really impressed by. I think there's a lot to play with here. I think I'm interested in playing around with them. I don't know if I'll end up putting an army together for demons in the near future, but I'll definitely play some more games with them online, because I really enjoyed this. Something to pick up more after LGT, where I'm taking Dark Elves. Huge thanks, as always, to my supporters. Special thanks to the Grail Knight tier supporters, Old World Arena, previous Morpheus Gaming, Mecha Knight, Krieghammer, and most recently Ginger Steve. I really appreciate the support that you give me. Thank you as well to everyone else who is on the screen now. As always, if you want to support, you can do so by becoming a member, or if you don't want to, liking the video, subscribing. All of these things are really helpful, and I really do appreciate it. Plenty more content coming over the next few weeks and months. If there's anything that you're interested in seeing, let me know in the Discord. We do have a Discord down below. Not a members-only Discord. There are some members-only sections. And if you are interested in voting on an army that I play every month, do have a look at the Pick My List series. That is where the Grail Knight tier supporters get to suggest, and then at the end of the month, vote on the army that they want to see me play. See you next time.